Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, joined by the young prodigy, lifetime Longhorn CJ Vogel. And we're here for another preview for Texas' upcoming opponent, the ULM Warhawks. And this preview and this episode of On Texas Football is brought to you by the folks over at MyBookie. Make sure you're in the game with MyBookie. Play any matchup, hundreds of college player props and more over at MyBookie. All right, CJ, getting ready to break down the ULM Warhawks and more importantly, a team that Texas is going to play for the first time as the number one team in the country for the first time since 2008. It's been a really, really long time there. And how about this? I didn't expect it, CJ. We got bulletin board material from ULM and the defensive coordinator, Ernest Hill. Well done. We were trying to struggle to find some plot lines and some storylines for this matchup. And Ernest Hill, the defensive coordinator, he just gifted us this beautiful gem of a quote here. And he's got a couple of them, but here's one. He said, quote, this is about Arch Manning possibly it hadn't been confirmed yet, but we believe it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. He will start the game. This is what Ernest Hill, the DC of ULM, had to say, quote, we actually have some kids on our team who played against him in New Orleans, and a couple of guys done beat him already, so they don't hold too much fear against him, so they're not going to hold any fear against him coming up here. He also said, and I'll paraphrase, he also said that Texas would likely be distracted and not prepare for ULM like they prepare for other opponents because, his words, they're just a mediocre group of five program. This dude, I gotta tell you, I'm kind of a fan of Ernest Hill, man. He's keeping it real, even when keeping it real may go wrong for him. What are your thoughts? Usually this would be the head coach maybe saying something. The head coach is Brian Vincent, so he is not, I don't know if he's commented on those comments, but what are your thoughts about the bulletin board material early on we're getting from Ernest Hill, the DC?
Well, I think you understand why some head coaches don't like their coordinator speaking to the media, Rod. But, at the same time, I think it's a pretty bold thing to say. You come out and I know he's taking kind of a subtle jab at himself, calling ULM a mediocre G5 team. But at the same time, I don't know if I would ever put anything out there for an opposing team to be upset about when I'm a 45-point underdog. I don't think that's what I want, the opposing team to go in there with extra fuel with. So interesting comments. But to the Arch thing, that's a bit bizarre. Yeah, sure. You might have beat Arch Manning in high school, but that was 2 years ago. And that was not with a first round left tackle. That was not with the fastest player at wide receiver in the country. That's not with Matthew Golden, a Ryan Wingo. The level of talent disparity there is tremendous, out of this world from what Arch was dealing with in high school to what he's, basically gifted right now here at Texas. And good luck is my message to ULM, and especially that defense. If, you're expecting to slow down Arch Manning, we saw it last week. It's not an easy thing to do. The explosivity, those big plays are there. They're jumping off the screen. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen something like that, Rod. It's pretty unique.
Yeah, usually it'll come from a player, right? Player interviews, he says something, maybe it got taken out of context. But when I heard the DC, I believe he's a first-year DC because he was at UAB prior to this for 2 years as a safeties coach and also like a nickel slot coach as well, nickel corner slot coach. And now he's the defensive coordinator there. So I thought that would be a great place to start. By the way, shout out to Danny Davis over at the Austin American Statesman. He did the research. He's a journalist, so he went down the rabbit hole, which we like to go down all the time, CJ. And this is what he found. He said, for what it's worth, Arch Manning lost to 5 Louisiana high schools and 1 Florida school over 4 years at Isidore Newman. Of the Louisiana and Florida products listed on the ULM roster, none of their listed high schools were one of those schools that Arch lost to. Hashtag investigative reporting. So Danny Davis calling them out that, hey, actually, it's inaccurate what you said, even though you're taking a little subtle jab at Arch there. That your statement was a bit inaccurate. So either way, now I'm an Ernest Hill fan. We needed storylines for this game. We needed stuff to, be intrigued by other than Arch Manning making his first start. And honestly, I got to tell you, Ernest Hill, you delivered. So really, I remember those movies back in the day. Ernest goes to DK this time, and I don't think it's going to work out well for Ernest, but we'll see. All right,
it never does work out well for Ernest, right? Not the whole plot.
Yes. Hey, aren't you too young to remember the Ernest movies, CJ?
I've seen Ernest Goes to Camp. I know.
Right. I don't know. I thought that reference would be too old for you. See, TJ, you always earning points for me, man. All right, let's thank our sponsor, MyBookie, here one more time. With all the excitement this season, folks, make sure you're in the game with MyBookie. Bet any matchup, hundreds of college player props, and take advantage of weekly risk-free bets. The best part is you can do it all anytime, anywhere, straight from your phone, folks, at your convenience. Visit mybookie.ag right now and use the promo code ONTexas, right? Use that promo code ONTexas to get started. And it's MyBookie's 10-year anniversary, so they're rolling out the red carpet for all you bettors out there. Bet big and win big, and bet confident with risk-free Thursdays. If your boosted bet doesn't hit, you'll get your money back weekly. No sweat, win-win bets all season long. Folks, you cannot beat that. With MyBookie, you're making money before you even place a bet. And sign up right now. Use the code ONTexas to cash in on a double deposit bonus. It's a no-brainer. Double the cash in your account before you even place your first bet. But you don't want to wait on it right now because it's only available for a limited time. So you want to cash in on this bonus right away. For those who've been playing with MyBookie in the past, they've got something for you as well. A brand new loyalty rewards program in MyBookie Plus. It's simple. The more you play, the more you earn. As you progress through the tiers, you will unlock exclusive promotions, epic giveaways, and cash back in your account with MyBookie Plus. Go check it out for yourself. MyBookie.ag. Remember, use that promo code ONTexas. All right. Thank you guys for that. All right. Let's get right to the breakdown here, CJ. I figure we should start on defense, since Ernest Hill's getting all the love here. Maybe we start on the defensive side of the ball. And that's also where they actually have some ballers. They got some guys on the defensive side of the ball that I would consider playmakers, and maybe playmakers at every level of this ULM defense. And I would say cohesively as a unit so far, even though they only faced Jackson State, and they haven't faced a lot. I believe the other opponent is UAB. Thank you very much for that. They haven't faced any high caliber, elite, prolific offenses. But so far, I will say the defense has improved exponentially from last year, and they are playing well as a unit. And they have some guys who've made some plays on that defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I think you have to start at the edge room. And I think, given the Texas tackles, it shouldn't come as much threat, but there is talent there, right? These kids are still on scholarship. They're at a D1 program. They put their pants on just like Texas does, Rod. And through 2 games, this group has 6 sacks and 40 pressures. How about that? And again, I know it's UAB, I know it's Jackson State, but 40 pressures is not something that you can bat your eye at and say it's nothing, right? Through 2 games, they're living in the backfield right now. You have to watch out for Billy Pullen. He's their number 1 guy. He's got 4 sacks, 9 pressures, and 5 hurries so far through 2 games. He's an NFL caliber guy. He'll be a late round look in 2025. He's the number 1 guy. Dylan Howell's another. Cavante Wells is another one. So they cycle through at the edge spot, and they find creative ways to get these guys into the backfield. So communication for this Texas offensive line will be key. Of course, when you start looking at who are some of these guys Texas will have to be wary of, it starts with Pullen. And then I think you have to start using tight ends, running backs, whoever you can to chip in and help to give Arch Manning or Quinn Ewers a pocket, right? Of course, we don't officially yet know who the quarterback will be. All signs point to Arch, but wanted to make that clear that by the time that we're filming this, things could change whenever it airs. But right now, pocket awareness, pocket protection is going to be the biggest key for the Longhorn offense on Saturday.
That's a good point to bring up, because we've talked about how with Arch in there, Sark likes to move the pocket a little bit. And maybe that'll help you against some of these edge rushers, especially Pullen, who I'm with you. I mean, he's a guy that he's got some high level natural pass rushing ability. So maybe moving the pocket is something you'll definitely see more of with the kind of edges they have. Also, what's your thoughts about Wydett Williams Jr.? I mean, he's a playmaker for him too in the back end, in that secondary. He's a guy second on the team right now in tackles, but has already got an interception under his belt, got a pass deflection under his belt already. He's a guy to watch in the back. Carl Glass is a senior linebacker for him. He's the leading tackler. So at that second level of the defense, he's the guy to watch. Already got a forced fumble. So this defense, I'm with you. I was surprised actually, man, that the defense has played as well as they have, and has had as many playmakers on the defense as I didn't expect to see that early on for this team.
No, I'm with you. Wyatt Williams, only 34 yards allowed this year on 7 targets. I'd say that's a pretty good mark so far. 5 of those were receptions, not much yards after the catch ability. Carlin Vigors, another. He's kind of that cornerback option for you. He's the other guy on this roster with an interception at the moment. So to your point, Rod, they are making plays on the football. They have a few pass deflections in that secondary at the moment. However, have they seen a speed like Matthew Golden? Have they seen speed like Isaiah Bond? The big playability of Ryan Wingo? I'm not sure teams like Jackson State or UAB, all due respect, have that caliber of talent or have tested the secondary with guys like this. And the other thing is, I talked about the 40 pressures, and we talk about it with the Texas defense. How can they play complementary football? Those pressures are mitigated, and they're not able to speed up the process or the throwing motion of an Arch Manning or Quinn Ewers. How much does that affect that secondary? Are they able to stick with these wide receivers in their routes down the field? Because right now you're looking at the stats, and yeah, it makes sense why those secondary numbers are so good because they have so much pressure on the quarterback. Of course, I mentioned Billy Pullen earlier. He's the guy that's helping those safeties, those corners, those linebackers in coverage. If that goes away and that offensive line for Texas holds up, I think it becomes a different story for that secondary against this level of speed.
Yep. No, I agree with you. And they haven't allowed a lot of explosive plays, but as you just pointed out, they haven't seen an offense this explosive. I believe when I looked at it, they've only allowed 4 20-plus yard plays all season long, and they've all come via the pass. Yeah. So they actually have done a good job stopping the explosive plays on the ground, allowed 0 20-plus yard rushes. So that's going to be the question for Texas, who is very prolific via the pass. And we know Arch has an explosive element to his game. We saw that in that last game versus UTSA against a team that doesn't give up, a defense doesn't give up a lot of explosive. It'll be interesting to see if Texas pushes the envelope there and pushes the limit and tries their best to push the football downfield. I think they actually will, and that's something that we'll see them challenge that defense with. Something else, and since we're obviously talking about the defense, something else to keep in mind with Texas is I want to think about the pass rate and the balance of the offense. Early on, we talked about how Texas has gone with a pass to open up the run philosophy, hovering around 60% early game, early down pass rate. Hell, with Quinn in that game versus UTSA, he was close to 70% pass rate when he was in there. I do wonder if we're going to get a more balance now and with this offense, with Arch Manning in there, or are we going to see them still lean on the pass, which is their strengths and the weapons they have there, and let that open up the run? That's kind of one of the themes I'm watching for in this matchup. What are your thoughts? You think Sark is still going to lead on the pass, considering that's where the weapons are and the injuries at running back, or we expect to see balance now with a first-time starter in there?
I expect to see very much the same, in sense that, you look at the UTSA game, Rod, Texas came out and threw passes on 9 of their first 10 plays and 16 of their first 20 plays. So they were very pass heavy. They wanted to rely on Quinn Ewers and his arm with Arch Manning. I expect it to be very similar, more so underneath, right? And that was kind of Quinn's MOs, right? Get the ball out to space, allow your playmakers to create after the catch. We don't know if Jaden Blue is going to be fully healthy. We don't know if Trey Wisner is going to be fully healthy. And Texas is already thin at the running back spot right now. We're expected to hear an update later Thursday afternoon. But for the time that we're expecting on this field right now, I mean, it's Jarrett Gibson, it's Ryan Niblett, and it's a little bit of Velton Gardner that we're expecting to be full goes, right? So I do expect some of those quick screens, some bubbles. Luckily, and we'll talk about the ULM offense here in a minute, their offense should help shorten the game in its own right? You talk about their run to pass rate. It's the fourth shortest pass percentage in the entire country. They're 131st, Rod, in terms of run to pass rate in the entire country. They run the football at 75% of their plays so far through 2 games in 2024. That's up there with the academies. That's Navy, Army, Air Force level. So that game should, naturally be condensed a little bit, helping the Longhorns not have to play as many snaps and therefore preserving injuries, preserving health as much as you can.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff there. That's a nice little factoid. All right. Since we're talking about their offense, let's just flip the script a little bit, talk about their offense versus the Texas defense. They're led by General Booty. His name is General Booty. General Maximus Axel Booty is the actual entire name, which I think is fantastic. You got to give his parents some credit for that. At least they're creative and they got a sense of humor about it. But he's a starting quarterback, and basically they want him to be a game manager. They do not want him having to go win a game for them. This is an offense that is built around the running game. That's their identity. That's their expertise. And they actually have a nice complement of running backs by committee here. Ahmad Hardy, James Jones, Taven Curry, who they use a little bit as the guy on the edge and get him involved in the passing game some. What did you see from the running game? Because they actually use a lot of pistol in their running game. See a lot of inside zone, a lot of outside zone blocking schemes. But I mean, so far they've been really efficient. Basically, all their top running backs averaging around 5 yards or more per carry.
Yeah. Ahmad Hardy is the guy to look out for in my eyes. I know he doesn't have the highest yard per carry mark on this team so far, but 33 carries compared to 20 by James Jones and 17 by Taven Curry. Those are really the three-headed monster that you have to watch out for on this offense. Of course, they want to run the football. I mentioned 75-25 split run to pass, but Hardy is a really interesting guy for me. You know, I think that he runs physically. I think he's got that one cut ability as well, Rod. Texas got beat at times last week, right? We saw the missed gap assignment that resulted in the long run. They do have some big playability. What's interesting, though, is of these three running backs, they don't receive the football. And they don't really look to throw the football at all, right? You know, only 2 receptions among these 3 running backs so far, and that's combined or compared to 70 rush attempts so far. So, you know, you see what their philosophy is. They don't throw the football all that much at all. General Booty actually only has 3 attempts through 2 games beyond 10 yards down the field, Rod. So if that's the approach that you're coming into a game with Texas in, you better hope that you own that time of possession and shorten that game. Otherwise, you're not going to have the explosive plays to keep up with the Texas offense. You shouldn't already, to be completely honest. But with the way that their offense is built, it's all about running the football. And, you know, fortunately for them, they have a lot of experience on this offensive line. They're old on the offensive line, which bodes well in big games like this. It obviously won't be a big determining factor in my eyes, but at the same time, you looking long-term for this season, that's going to bode well for this team, the makeup of it.
Yeah, to your point about the passing game, you said it's a great stat, only 3 targets, 10 yards or more down the field this season. If you're just looking at percent of targets at or behind the line of scrimmage, only 5 teams have a higher rate of targets at or behind the line of scrimmage in the FBS.
Wow.
Because everything's going to be compressed because they run the ball a ton. As you point out, they're vertically challenged in their offense. A lot of targets at or behind the line of scrimmage. You're Texas, you kind of flood and suffocate the short intermediate zone. There really is no need to defend the deeper vertical part of the field.
Yeah, right. You can basically just dig your heels in and say, all right, everything in front of me, that's where I'm going to go. You probably see some guys try to jump some routes, but if you're ULM, that first drive, how about you come out with a little stop and go or a sluggo or something, because that's going to be the game plan coming in the entire week for Texas.
And who would that go to? It would probably go to Javon Campbell, correct, for the receivers, because we know they don't throw the football, obviously, but if they're going to throw it vertically downfield, he seems to be the guy. He's only got 5 receptions, though, in 2 games. But over 17 yards a catch. So he's the guy, and he got some size. I think he's like 6'3", like 215. He's got a little size on him, too. He might be the guy in the receiving game. Other than that, there's not a lot of weapons in the passing game at all.
No, the only other guy I wanted to point out is Devon Wells, 7 for 46 in the score. The 2 of them really lead the team by a pretty wide margin in terms of target share. And the looks in which General Booty gives his wide receivers, most of them go to these 2 guys. There's not much explosivity. Again, you mentioned Javon Campbell there, 16 yards a catch. That's great, but you only have 5 catches, right? So that's one big play that really kind of skewed those numbers, if you will. So not many options that secondary will hone in on. I'm looking for a big day from Manny Muhammad. Get that confidence up from Jahdae Barron on the outside as well. Should be a good day for the Texas cornerbacks.
And it should be a day where we see a lot of the same defensive fronts we saw versus Michigan. If they want to run the football, we might see a lot of it in base, but they run from spread sets. They use the pistol, use a lot of jet motion to try to get some misdirection in there.
Yeah.
So for Texas, it'll be interesting to see what we've seen. Something new from Johnny Nansen every week. It feels like a new little twist to throw out there. I wonder what it may be versus ULM, or maybe we won't see much difference because maybe you don't need it versus ULM.
Yeah, it could be the case.
Could be the case. All right. Thanks, CJ. Great stuff there as always, brother. And thank you very much to our friends over at MyBookie for sponsoring the preview. And by the way, make sure you use that code on Texas and you'll get hooked up there, double your first deposit. How about that? And thanks to our friends at MyBookie. And remember, check out MyBookie Plus. If you are someone who's already been betting with MyBookie, then you know all the benefits and you'll benefit even more with MyBookie Plus. All right. Thanks to our man CJ. Thank you to all you guys for joining it, watching and listening. Thanks to our friends over at MyBookie. And until next time, hook 'em horns.